do a mic check.
Yeah.
All right. Test 1, 2, 3.
I think they're literally starting right now.
Are they going to sit or stand?
I'll probably start out standing if you don't mind. Does that work? Does the mics work good if I stand? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you good.
First of all, when we start recording, state your name and your title.
Yeah, I'm gonna go see. Yeah. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Robert Chekleski. I'm the Jackson County Emergency Management Agency Director. I'm also acting as the Public Information Officer for this incident today with the Vinton County Emergency Management Agency.
Can you spell the last name?
Chekleski, C-Z-E-C-H-L-E-W-S-K-I. All right. We had an incident that occurred approximately 8:30 this morning at the Austin Powder Plant, which is the Austin Powder Red Diamond facility, which is located northeast of MacArthur, just off of 677 State Route here off north of 50. Okay. There was a chemical release out of a 5,000-gallon nitric acid tank, which released 3,000 gallons and created nitric oxide. Now, the plant is located 27 miles southeast of Chillicothe, and the plant is actually an explosives manufacturing plant. They make explosives there for commercial use. There was an evacuation of 3-mile radius initially around the plant, and then they eventually evacuated the village of Zaleski, which has approximately 750 residents. The Vinton County EMA utilized their HyperReach mass notification system, along with there was radio announcements and television announcements. The Red Cross opened up a shelter at the Vinton County High School in MacArthur, which is off of 50, just west of the village of MacArthur. The Federal Aviation Administration implemented a temporary flight restriction of a radius of 30 nautical miles with a 23,000-foot ceiling around the area at 10:25 this morning. So we didn't want any drone or helicopter traffic. Hazardous materials teams from neighboring counties assisted. The 2 hazardous materials teams is the Wellston Fire Department hazmat team, which is made up of hazmat technicians and operators out of Jackson and Vinton and other counties. And we also had the Ross County hazmat team, which is made up of firefighters from Chillicothe Fire Department and the VA Fire Department. There were multiple road closures in the area, and the Ohio Department of Transportation helped with that. The Vinton County Emergency Operations Center and Joint Information Center were opened in response to this, which is down at the Sheriff's Office right down the road. One other thing here. And I already mentioned to you that the chemical was nitric oxide that was in the plume. I'm going to turn it over to the Health Department to tell you the effects of nitric oxide.
Yep, so I am Brad Price with the Vinton County Health Department. I'm the Director of Environmental Health with them. Just briefly on the symptoms, we had some changing information, but for nitric oxide, you're looking at symptoms that range from irritation of eyes, skin, nose, and throat, to drowsiness and maybe some unconsciousness. That's for acute exposure. There's not going to be anything that we know on long term with the recentness of all of this. What we would recommend, if you feel that you've been exposed, clean yourself, irrigate eyes, fresh water, those kind of things. If you feel any lingering effects past that, contact your primary care physician or get to urgent care or emergency room for treatment.
I would also add that the National Weather Service on Charleston, West Virginia was involved with plume modeling, and they were giving us plume modeling updates approximately every 30 minutes. And the last plume update I had the plume. It was just to the south here from the plant. So, like I said, this is still an active incident. We still have the hazmat teams working on the things out there at the facility. So. All right, questions?
For people evacuating, how long do you expect that they're gonna be out of their homes? Is EPA monitoring this?
Okay, they're actively monitoring at the plant. They'll be working with Ohio EPA. I'm actually a member of the Wellston Fire Department hazmat team. I'm the firefighter hazmat technician, so I'm quite familiar with this. So what they'll do is once they have the leak contained, they'll conduct air monitoring out there, and then once they know that it's all safe, then we'll be releasing to the public and the media that it's an all clear, and then people can get back in their homes.
But that could be days and it just.
Hopefully not. Normally an incident like this would probably last a few hours. It's all gonna depend on the wind conditions and the amount of concentration that was released, so.
And there are facilities throughout the county that are designated as shelter in place. This is one of them. If we needed to open it up, the schools are one. You're looking for places that have, obviously shelter and then bathroom, shower facilities, those kind of things. If we needed to expand that, we would tap into that network and find places for people to be if it's going to be a long-term displacement.
Red Cross and United Way are operating a shelter right now at the high school, the Vinton County High School.
You had talked about the flume, any danger of it drifting toward West Virginia or other areas?
No, the plume actually that was being monitored by Charleston National Weather Service was actually going up to the northeast, and the last time they had it, based on the amount of volume and the release, it was just south. It hadn't made it quite to the village of Zaleski yet. So it was, thankfully at this time, it was quite in a rural area. And once they get it released, that nitric oxide there, it'll tend to start dissipating, okay? So I'll see if we can eventually get a picture of the plume. I'll have to try to get one of those from the EOC. It looks like a red cloud, is what it looks like, a red cloud kind of above that tank.
And I had I'm sorry.
Okay.
I had a question for you. You had mentioned the symptoms of if you inhale this, can you die from it?
There are cases of very acute exposure. There's case studies from years past that high doses of acute exposure could cause death, but that would have probably been the immediate, if anybody was working right on site. As far as I know, we don't have any reports of that, at least that we have.
Yeah, we've not had any reports of any injuries at this time.
Worst case scenario. Okay.
Yeah.
Are you able to tell us how this leak happened?
No, we do not know how it happened. So,
And how close was it to employees, this tank?
I don't know. This plant is quite large. I want to say it's over 1,000 acres. Being an explosives manufacturing plant, all the different facilities are spread out quite a distance from each other. So we don't know without having a plant representative on here. I can't tell you exactly how far it was.
Any employees injured during
No,
that?
we've had no reports. We've not had any reports of any injuries.
Anyone taken to the hospital?
No, not to our knowledge.
As crews continue to monitor the situation, is there a risk for people drinking water or, even being outside of that zone? Is there something, we can take?
This isn't in the ground, so it's more an inhalation hazard at this time. So it would be more affecting with the breathing, so it's not going to be really in the ground. I'm sure if there's the nitric acid initially that was released, if any of that's in the ground, the Ohio EPA would work with the Ohio EMA and the Vinton County EMA on mitigating that.
So is there a difference when it comes to impacting health, nitric oxide and nitric acid? Is that?
Yes. Nitric acid is a lot more dangerous than the nitric oxide, okay? The health effects of inhaling nitric acid are almost fatal, okay? Yeah, if they breathe that in. So it's probably, where it's reacted and created that plume of nitric acid is probably better to our benefit. It's not as lethal.
For plants like this, is there an extra risk with them being, making explosives and stuff, or something like this to happen, for chemical leaks like this to happen?
Well, I would have to defer that to the plant, but I can go ahead and tell you from experience that the Vinton County Emergency Management Agency actively exercises and trains with the Austin Powder plant. So they do have plans in place, and they do hazmat exercises with them.
What do you want to say to anybody who's outside and saw the plume, watch their health symptoms? What's your recommendation
Yeah.
to them?
Yeah, it would be, just watch for those symptoms. If you have any skin, eye, or nose irritation, or throat irritation, any shortness of breath, any dizziness, clean up with fresh, clean water. Cold water, just flush your eyes. Shower up, whatever you need to do. And if you feel any lingering effects, contact your healthcare provider immediately or seek some medical attention.
Do you know if anybody's into the hospital, has gone to the emergency room?
We have had no reports.
We've had
that
no
have come
reports
through
to
us.
our agencies concerning that.
Any more like sensitive groups, like elderly or people with asthma?
Yeah, probably respiratory. If you had
Yeah.
asthma, any pre-existing things like that would be more likely to be sensitive to it.
What about animals and livestock?
In the immediate zone there, I'd say that people should probably really watch their livestock, see if they're having any symptoms. So,
There'd be similar symptoms. But the plant itself is on a very large tract of land, and there's not a lot of residential around the immediate vicinity.
it's a very rural location, so.
Any updates as to when evacuation will be lifted, when people will no longer have to shelter in place? Are you gonna do it hour by hour, or what's the next update?
Once they have the leak contained, and like I mentioned earlier, they do the air monitoring, and the air monitoring samples come back that it's safe for people to get back into their homes, then there'll be a notification to lift the evacuation.
With the explosives being made at that plant, is like dynamite made there, and is there a concern about other things exploding as this chemical leak is still?
I would have to defer that to the plant. Like I mentioned earlier, most of the facilities on that plant are quite spread out. So if there is any kind of incident at one facility, it normally would not affect other facilities. I've actually been to the plant during a hazmat exercise before, so I've seen the different facilities, and they're spaced quite distances apart. So.
And what is the process of containing this leak?
Okay, the leak on the ground would probably be contained with like booms and pads, possibly dirt. They would make like dikes and trenches and things like that to contain the leak to the liquid nitric acid. As far as the nitric oxide, it's a vapor, so it's going up in the air due to the reaction. So it's just going to have to dissipate into the air. But anything leaked on the ground, Ohio EMA, and the Vinton County EMA, and the Ohio EPA will work with that to work on the cleanup. In a lot of cases, they have to dig up the soil. Okay.
And several areas right now having to evacuate. Any concerns on your mind for lingering in other directions further than the points that are at now? Anything like that?
They're doing constant monitoring on it now, so at the last report we had, it was still pretty much contained in that one area.
So when they do the plume modeling, they're actually watching how that's moving through air, and they'll adjust that, and it's pretty much real time as they're monitoring that, and it's constant input through the National Weather Service. And if there's any adjustments to be made, or they need to do a different area, they'll release that information.
Just to be clear, it was the nitric acid, you're dealing with that on the ground, or is it leaked under the ground, and then the nitric oxide is the plume?
Yeah, the nitric would be the plume.
Okay.
So, but I'm not sure if any of that nitric acid actually escaped its containment. So I'm not exactly sure what the reaction was. So it may be contained. A lot of their storage tanks have containment type pools around them. And without having anyone here from the plant, it may still be in the containment fields. It may not even escape like they build like a concrete enclosure around a lot of those tanks.
But obviously, with her question, there has to have been some sort of reaction.
Yeah, that's what created the nitric oxide. So, and I'll have to defer any of those questions to the plant. I don't know that. I don't know. We just know the chemicals. We don't know what it was actually used for, other than it was used in some kind of explosives manufacturing.
For a lot of these, obviously the plant's gonna only know the answers to those. Will we have an opportunity to hear from them or ask?
I'm sure the plant will be sending out an official release. Okay, and I'm also sure that the Ohio EPA will be doing an investigation. There'll be a report from the Ohio EPA that'll come out.
I don't know if you addressed this already, but do you know how long it had been leaking before
It was
noticed?
reported at around approximately 8:30 this morning that the leak was discovered.
And did somebody just notice it? Was there an explosion?
I believe there was no kind of explosion or fire that we were aware of. I believe it was somebody working at the facility discovered the leak.
So they just happened to look over, oh, it's leaking.
Yeah, it probably, I'm going to speculate, but it probably started creating a cloud when they saw it at the plant, so.
Were any schools evacuated? I know there's that shelter in school, but were any schools in session in that zone that were moved?
Not to my knowledge.
No, there would not be a school in that area.
No school?
Yeah, there's not a school. I know that, and, well, it's really summertime anyway, the school's closed down.
Yeah. There's 5 public school buildings in the county. 3 are in the village of MacArthur, 1 out by Allensville, and then 1 down closer to Hamden. So they're all this way, and the plume's moving this way.
Okay.
So all the school buildings are on the back side of where the plume's moving.
Plume's moving away from the schools.
Yes.
And 2 things, if you guys don't care to come closer to the mics a little bit, thank you so much. And 2, has the plant had any history of incidents like this one happening before?
I can't answer that because, like, I'm not from I'm from Jackson County, not from Vinton, so that would, you probably have to direct that to the plant and to the Vinton County EMA. I'm not aware of any myself personally. So.
If there were any remediation responses or investigations in the past, the Ohio EPA would have responded to those, and they may have record of if they have anything. But not to my knowledge, but I'm fairly new to the county, and I haven't seen anything in our records that indicate that.
You know, you spoke on, you do hazmat drills, you do emergency drills.
Yes.
Maybe talk about the importance about when something like this happens, you guys have kind of been practicing for it.
Yeah, every county has a local emergency planning committee, so we have hazmat plans in place, and every county has an emergency operations plan. We also have evacuation plans in that, and we're required by Ohio Revised Code to conduct LAPC hazmat exercises each county every year. So we conduct those exercises either tabletop, functional, or full scale. And sometimes we do them in multiple counties combined together with our hazmat teams. So, like I mentioned earlier, I know Vinton County has had a couple of exercises with that plant before. But we do this primarily, we do it for facilities and also for chemical transporters on a yearly basis, every county in the state of Ohio. And I think most counties, even West Virginia, they do that too. So.
And just so it's safe for us to say, when it talks about the impacts for health, that it's at the time when you announce the evacuations, people had enough time to get out. So to say if they prepped up on it, they might experience a sore throat, itchy eyes, something like that, but nothing to a deadly point or something to that nature, right?
From our understanding, no. For the acute exposure, it's going to be that irritation unless it was a prolonged high-dose exposure. And I don't believe we know about that, how concentrated it was.
Are you still evacuating, or have all the evacuations been completed?
Those have already, to my knowledge, everything's pretty much taken place on that. That occurred fairly rapidly. They did the initial 3 mile out from the scene on that, and then they evacuated the village as Alaska.
So if we drive through, theoretically speaking, obviously, if we drove through the village, it would just be like a ghost town.
Well, I don't even know if you can get through that area after this.
No,
My knowledge is
saying
college,
that's-
the roads are still closed at this time.
But if we drove through there, say hypothetically, it'll be just like a ghost town.
Theoretically, yes.
Yes.
They would have asked everyone to evacuate.
Yeah. And a lot of times, I will mention this too, that a lot of times, based if on incidents, sometimes we shelter in place, but since the plume was heading towards the village, that's why they did evacuate. So.
And anything else that you would want to add? Obviously, safety first and foremost here. For lack of a better term, maybe it's a blessing in disguise if it was that nitric oxide
Yes.
that was released instead of that nitric acid, just based on the comparisons that you gave.
Yeah.
Anything else you would want to share about that and people's safety?
I would, just drive home the fact that if you feel any symptoms at all, seek do your first aid at home, clean up as best you can, flush your skin, your eyes, your mouth, whatever it is. And if you feel anything at all, either go to urgent care or contact your healthcare providers. That's the main point in any exposure like this, or any potential exposure, is take care of yourself first and seek medical treatment if you need it.
And the Vinton County EMA Emergency Operations Center will be giving updates throughout the day to see what's going on, hopefully. Hopefully it can get contained fairly soon, so.
Will that, plant stay, the Austin powder stay closed? And for how long, you know? Or
I
is
don't-
that a question for them?
That would be a question for the plant, and that would also be a question probably for the Ohio EPA, because I'm sure they'll conduct an investigation into the release and cleanup too, so.
Robert, did you say who all has been involved with this?
Yeah, and let me go ahead and mention that, Bill Fott, the Vinton County EMA director, has been on scene pretty much since the incident started, and Brody Davis with the Ohio Emergency Management Agency has been on scene. So those two have been on scene. Myself, I've been working out in the Emergency Operations Center with the Health Department representative. Also, we have the Athens County Deputy EMA Director, Melissa Blank, has been helping me with the public information. Mark Egger, the Hocking County EMA Director, is down at the Emergency Operations Center helping the Deputy EMA Director for Vinton County, which is Dave Gill. So we've had and also Mark Thompson with the Ross County EMA Director is here too. So we've brought in quite a few EMA directors and deputy directors from around surrounding counties to help.
It may be too early to get an answer on this, but do you think that the plant will have to have any kind of fine or reprimand for this kind of?
That would be between the plant and the Ohio EPA. I can't really answer on that.
Thank you.
Any more
Thank
questions?
you very much.
All right, thank you. Like I said, we'll be giving updates. I've got all your email addresses and all of our official press releases that are written up. We'll email all that to you. And once we get some pictures from the scene, we'll try to email those to you too, okay?
Thank you
Okay.
so much.
Thank you all for coming.